Okay, we're going to get started. I'm sure everybody else will just join us as we're moving along, if that's okay. I would like to welcome all of you today to our NRH webinar, starring, like I like to say, Dr. Siby, who is the founder of SIBS Consulting Services. You are going to learn a lot today about culture, what might be rooted in your turnover. And Dr. Siby is going to impart his wisdom and his experience on you. I would like to again invite all of you to please, this is an interactive workshop, so you are welcome to turn your cameras on. You're welcome to raise your hands. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat. Dr. Siby will be doing this in sections, so he will present you with the section, and any questions you may have, you can put those in the chat while he is presenting. And once again, please put your name, your title, and your organization in the chat so we know who is here with us. You're also welcome to put your LinkedIn link in there. I am seeing names that I'm not totally familiar with. So if you are not a member of the Nonprofit Resource Hub and you are with a nonprofit organization, please go to our website and join as a nonprofit partner. It is free of charge for you to join, and you get access to really great webinars and workshops like this, as well as a ton of resources for templates, for guides, fundraising, and you have access to our associate members who are really professional, very much invested in the sector, and want to help you do your job better. So once again, I would like to welcome you and welcome Dr. Siby.
Thank you, Alison. I am Dr. Sekou Siby. I'm the founder of SIBS Consulting Services. And let me talk to you a little bit about myself. I started to working in a nonprofit organization as a community organizer. Then I moved to a lead organizer, finance director, a deputy director. And today I hold a MBA and a DBA in business administration. The focus of my dissertation was on employee retention strategies and human service nonprofit organizations. So I welcome all of you because retention is a critical issue in a nonprofit organization. Employee losing staff, the replacement is difficult in a sense because, as you well know, losing culture in the organization or losing the importance knowledge that the replacement will not have is very important for the organization. This is why I would like to discuss this topic, and I want to tell you that you can stop me anytime if I use some concept that are complicated that you don't understand. Please feel free to stop me. So I will share a PowerPoint presentation, and you let me know if you have any question. Okay, so let's start by the data. According to the data, 42 to 50% of leadership failures are related to turnover. And if you also look at the data, 30 to 50% of communication breakdown leads to turnover. When you ask people who left the organization, why did you leave? 42 to 50%, it is a leadership failure. And 30 to 50%, it is a communication breakdown. Now we can look at burnout impact. Burnout is capable of leading to 3 times more turnover than a situation where there is no burnout. And 54% employee interviewed stated that the unfair treatment in the organization is the reason why they left. And we have also 21% of organizations who left cited culture and politics. So we think the relation between turnover crisis and the culture in the organization is critical, and this is a good time to discuss it. Right? My hope is at the end of this conversation, you will have tools or learn about tools that you can use, or you have a better understanding of what leads turnover in your organization. Yeah, this is my expectation. My expectation is people at the highest level of the organization, right, need to be between 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, which means that you are in an organization and you feel like you can bring over people. That's a testament to the fact that you care about the organization, You expect other people to come to the organization because you believe that this is the right place to be. But I would also say that 7 and 8 is kind of passive, right? And if you are in a leadership of the organization and you don't know if you really need to bring somebody to the organization, you're unsure whether you need to bring somebody in the organization, that's also tells us something about the culture of the organization. Leadership should always be sure and be happy to bring over people, but why? Why don't you think that you shouldn't? You may not. You don't think you should bring somebody to the. Why are you in doubt? Can somebody touch this subject a little bit with me?
So,
Anyone?
Dr. Siby, if I could chime in, because we speak to, as you know, a lot of nonprofits.
Yeah.
We hear a few different bits of feedback regarding this. One thing that seems to be a consistent theme throughout is that those that are in kind of the midpoint of their career, the reason why they may not be so satisfied or as enthusiastic is that they feel like they need more support to help train them to bring them into more executive roles.
Yes. That's the reason. This is something that I wanted to cover next. All right.
And we do encourage those that are with us today to please do participate. This is good for all of us to be able to talk through these questions with Dr. Siby.
Yeah. So what Allison just said, a leadership, a culture dimension. In terms of leadership style, the reason why people don't feel like they can bring more individuals and are enthusiastic in bringing more individuals, it is they see in the organization what is cited by research is a micromanagement that stifles autonomy and creativity in the organization. People feel like this is something that's preventing them from moving forward. There is also a lack of delegation that they feel, and that doesn't give them, enough chance to move forward. Passive conflict handling, meaning there is a lot of conflict in the organization, but the organization doesn't solve these issues. It is always a push forward. Leadership, avoiding difficult conversation. The one thing that I would like to add to it is that when you look at foundations, only 1% of the funding and foundation go to leadership development. And that's a major limitation to many organizations. On top of that, my next question is, how many of you have a long-term strategic plan? I'm not
Any of our
seeing.
participants have a long-term strategic plan?
Yeah.
I'm asking if they could put in the chat if they do or do not.
It looks like Lewis did. He just sent a thumbs up.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I can't see the whole screen. Thank you.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking this question is part of the problem in the organization is they have a long-term strategic plan. And they sometimes do not have a long-term budget along with strategic plan. The third piece of it is because we don't have a long-term budget with a strategic plan, we have a 5-year strategic plan, we have a 1-year budget. It is important for them to have a budget for each of the strategic plan. Now, the last piece is what they lack the most, which is critical. It is a strategic workforce plan. So if you have a 5-year strategic plan, it is important for you to know 5 years from now, what are the people who will be working, who will be carrying out a strategic plan? What are the competencies that will be required to carry out a strategic plan? And unfortunately, because they don't have a workforce strategic plan, they don't know what are the competencies, what is the competency gap between today and 5 years from now. They find it problematic to actually train their managers, right? So if you know, for example, that 5 years from now, we will grow 10% and 10% will equate by, let's say, 15 people, your large organization. who are those 15 people? What are the competencies that they bring into the organization? Who today can fit those positions? And what is the gap in the competency from what the competencies are today and what the competencies is tomorrow? And once you're capable of identifying those competencies, then it is easier for you to develop a training plan. But organizations find it difficult to develop a training plan for the managers because they don't have a long-term view of the skill required to run the organization in the future. And that's a highly problematic. And this is part of the reason why managers get frustrated, because they don't see a way forward. That's why there is a lot of move where they go to another organization with the hope of getting promoted.
Dr. Siby, could I interject for just a moment, because somebody does have a really interesting point that they shared in the chat, which is, and I think this is kind of the conundrum, right? This person says, every nonprofit I've worked with spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants for strategic plans that aren't really followed through or implemented on effectively or consistently, but they need to show something to the board of directors. So I think what would be interesting is to just touch on that. How can a nonprofit best execute that strategic plan that they made a financial investment in, instead of just having a document that sits on a computer that nobody really pays attention to, but the board can see from time to time?
Yeah, this is a larger set of problem that I see in a nonprofit organization. And let me remind you that I was a CEO. I was an executive director for 4 years. I was a CEO for 3 years. I spent a lot of money in a consultancy. Part of the reason why I want to do this job is exactly that, because I got very frustrated on not having what I needed from a consultant. And I would say this: consultancy generally provide you with a recommendation and then walk away, right? When you develop a strategic plan, the strategic plan needs execution. If the organization is incapable of developing themselves the strategic plan, it means for the execution, which will require a lot of modification, they will need a hands-on help in order to do the implementation. And the strategic plan itself will require understanding of what resources are available, what are the capabilities in the organization that are needed in order to implement these strategic plan. And generally, the strategic plan doesn't come with any of those. All right. So I've found myself doing a lot of operation work, cross-functional operation work as an executive director, because I was frustrated. The plan that you get is maybe good for the program team, but you need an HR director who understands it. You need an operation director who understands it, and that has been critical. That's been problematic. So my recommendation is to ensure that every time you develop a strategic plan, the execution is in place. I have another tool that I call change of readiness assessment. Actually, it is a change of readiness diagnosis tool. And one of the issues that you see in an organization, they take a big change, which is a strategic plan, but they don't assess the organization to see if they're ready for that change. And that you have a lot of dimensions to that change. It is an organization in a crisis. It is resources may or may not be available. The competency internal may not be available. It is not an organization that learns quickly. And you want to take something that's as big and you don't have a training component to that change management, because strategic plan is a change management initiative. And these are all the issues that the organization face.
And in terms of just the culture dimension, when we're talking about that lack of execution of the strategic plan and how it really should be followed, do you think that is due to the leadership? Do you think that's due to onboarding? Do you think that's due to overwhelm?
It is all of them. All right. It is all of them, because leadership plays a role, but it is very difficult to blame a leader for a situation that they're not necessarily being trained for. All right. most people in nonprofit organizations get promoted because of a clear competency in a certain level, right? You're a good, HR manager, you become an HR director, right? HR coordinator, become an HR director. So you move from a position of technical skill of your field to now you need to manage people. And these are two separate skills. You need to be trained on how to manage people. And generally, you don't have a lot of one-on-one training for management in the market. Right? And that's challenging for a lot of managers. So my proposal towards managers is really, if you're not going to get a coach, which is expensive too, what you need to do is really get some of the assessment tool, is what I call a CPI, the Myers-Briggs, and you have the EQI, like 2.0. It is the emotional intelligence that will test your leadership qualities against a benchmark of the best leaders in these categories. So at least you understand it. The first phase of learning is being self-aware of what you're lacking. And those tools that can help. No. Okay, so I'm going to move to the communication phase. I don't want to get too much into the conversation here. But this is, the communication here, my example will be, you are in an organization, and the most toxic person, somebody that you found to be very toxic in that organization, gets promoted, right? What message does it send to the rest of the staff? They feel like here, right? It is not important how you do things, how you respect the people, your values of the organization, the values of the mission of the organization really don't matter, right? What matters is I know how to do my job. This person knows how to do his job and is getting promoted. So that's a problematic in a lot of organizations where the most toxic, some of the most toxic individuals are part of the leadership. And it is very difficult to manage those organizations. So that's challenging. And part of the reason is also because where you hire nonprofit organizations are needed to hire the people who are most committed to the company. But the HR focus more on the skilled competencies instead of the value-based hiring. And there is not enough question about what values this person bring to the organization, why this person want to work for this specific organization. They hire based on skill. And skill become, in that organization, the most important thing. The priority is given to the skill, not to the value. And that creates a lot of friction in organization. So in terms of communication, you will see there is a lot of unclear feedback loop, inconsistent updates. Decisions are made by the leadership, and most of the people don't know what are the decisions that are being made. I've been aware of a case, for example, where they lost a lot of funding, the government funding, and they decided to make staffing cut. Nobody knew about it until we were informed that, okay, we just lost money and these are the 10 people we need to go. So it is the level of transparency in the organization that's important. So how do you communicate with your staff? How do you instill trust between you and your staff is also part of the culture of the organization, because the culture is how we do things here. It is the personality of the organization. That's its culture.
Dr. Siby, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So how would you differentiate between like an individual performance issue versus a systemic culture issue?
I would say individual performance issue is tied to the organization culture issues. It is when, in general, managers prefer comfort, right, over accountability. The impact is on each individual, right? Because in this kind of situation, the individual is not performing. It is what I see in general is simply what happened in the organization means the organization is designed to allow it to happen. It means it is systemic. A lot of time we focus on one individual, but it is not necessarily one individual, but it is simply because the organization has allowed certain behavior, doesn't have enough policies that are executed to actually implement their own resolution in the organization. But that's what leads to individuals not performing. And it starts by one, it is very contagious. I see Cynthia.
So what, like,
yeah.
do you, I just have one more question for you based on that.
Yeah.
So, is there, I think everybody tries to hit their stride as far as what works best in their organization, but do you find in your experience, there's a time or a certain number of times that leadership should go in and kind of take the temperature of this culture? Is there, is there a secret sauce to it or a formula? Whereas, it's 4 times a year, twice a year, once a year.
I think the leadership should, the first test that I gave, that's very simple, right? The leadership should do that quarterly. Quarterly, you need to know if these individuals wants to stay with the organization. If they're ready to promote, it means that there is a commitment. They are not ready to promote the organization, it means the commitment is low. So that needs to be done quarterly. And it was a conversation. It is, I think, the third piece of my slide, employee engagement. Yeah, so that part is very important. You need to assess your organization consistently, but you also need to test the program that you're running, the effectiveness of the program, what is working, what is not working. It has to be based on data. All right. So I can give you, yeah. I don't want to
Dr. Siby, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that somebody had a question. They've had their hand up, and I don't want you to go into the next slide if they were referring to the last one. So do you mind if we just open the floor to Cynthia for a moment?
Yep.
Hi, thank you for this conversation. I think transparency is a big topic for lots of us.
Yes.
At Barrier Free Living, we're a very transparent organization. We tell our staff a lot, and some people will tell me too much, actually. But in the culture that we're living in the world of conspiracy theories, I do have some people who, even no matter how transparent you are, they have these conspiracy theories of there must be more that you're hiding from us. We don't know, and I just don't know how to deal with that with that those people sometimes, because I am giving everything, and there's just this theory of them. Because of the world we're living, there must be something you're hiding.
Thank you. I think transparency is a critical in the organization, but it doesn't have to be one person who is being transparent, and the other managers, they don't feel like they're getting that from the other managers. So if you, Cynthia, they know they can come to you and they will get the straight up answer that they're looking for. And they're not sure they can get from the other people. And most people are coming to you, you will see that there is a systemic issue. It is not because you are not transparent as an individual. It is a reflection on the organization and not on you. So again, I don't have the data on the organization, but if you conduct a survey, deep survey on how much those workers trust the leadership, I mean, you can come up with some answers. I don't think that it is simply because they don't want to trust. It's simply not everybody behaving the same way in one organization. And you will see when we talk about burnout, that's what happened. It is like, what is one person who is trusted with everything? Everybody go to that person, doing job and trust issues. They all rely on that person and they don't rely on the other people because you don't know what conversation they have with the other co-workers, and that becomes problematic in the organization. So I think it is collecting more data in the entire organization and how people react with the supervisor. And if you identify some gaps, it is providing transparency training with the entire management. so you can be on the same page. Because the culture cannot be one person.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Well, we can go to the next, which is more of employee engagement and satisfaction. Here, I'm going to touch a very important point, right? Your employee retention starts by hiring. Where you hire your employees is very important. We focus a lot on skill, but my advice is you need to develop tools around trust, transparency, and etc. You need to have questions related to trust, to transparency, to integrity, to honesty, a lot more, because we generally nonprofit organization, your commitment to the mission is critically important, not only your skill. But unfortunately, this is what happened, right? And so you will see a lot in the employee engagement and satisfaction. There are another two things that I would like to add to it. One is there are two types of, two types of a way to approach job satisfaction. Right. One is the intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is come from the individuals. It's a commitment to the mission and to this organization. Extrinsic motivation, as we have seen, it is a salary, it is a compensation, it is a flex time. As you've seen after COVID, a lot of time intrinsic motivation is a better driver of employee retention than extrinsic motivation. So a lot of times it's not about the salary; it is about how they feel supported, how they feel integrated in this organization, how they feel like they are valued in that organization, how they feel listened to. These are the kind of intrinsic motivation, how they feel aligned to the mission of the organization. These are the intrinsic motivation that you cannot do much about, right? Because it starts with the individual. What you can do, you have a lot of transparency about the individual. It is that engine inside the individual. This is why it is important when you're hiring to critically look at who you're hiring. Because if you hire people who are only care about the extrinsic motivation, they want more money and more money and more money and more money, because there is no commitment to the organization. The day they get better, wages somewhere, they are gone. So you can't have a good retention if you don't have people with solid intrinsic motivation. Because we have a lot of disengaged employees in the organization simply because they feel burnout. And I don't want to dive too much into the burnout, simply because it has a lot to do with the managers of the person who is burning out. Why is it that the manager is not looking after that person? Right? Why is it that the manager feel like this person can do all these jobs? Are we looking at job description and job duties? Are we constantly updating job duties and job description to see if it balances out? These are critical elements in the organization that they need to be able to look at. So the innovation and creativity, I do have one question about it. Can you tell me in your career path if you have experienced one time when you had a great idea about something and it got shut down?
So I've been trying, so I work for a museum, I work for the Parish Art Museum, and one idea I had was to reconfigure the front of house to be cross-trained. And so it was not received, it kind of went over like, nope. But I've just kind of, as the organization's progressed, I've just brought it up in different ways, in different times. And, what may not make sense, when you already have it fully staffed, may make sense later when there are changes in staffing. So it's not that necessarily a good idea can't go anywhere. It's that it might not be the right time, or, you know, et cetera. And then it doesn't mean it still isn't a good idea. It may not be the good idea for the right time. And now I'm finding the right time, and I'm trying to do some restructuring in that area. So.
Thank you for sharing, and you've been being very nice about it. Cross training is a good way for employee retention strategies. Retention strategy, cross training is a part of a good strategy for employee retention, because when you find yourself in a situation of, you know, money crunch, and you have to reduce staff, right? You having people who are cross trained means, you know, you can replace a few individuals, and other individual can do more for the organization. So you can remain stable in this type of situation. So cross training is actually critical. It may not be the right moment, like as you said, but cross training is critical for employee, you know, for protecting the organization in that sense.
And I also really want it to be for an entry level to make it really attractive. So sometimes cross training can be too many different things being pulled in too many different ways, as opposed to this is a really solid entry level position, because you start learning a bit of everything, and then you can start just determining your path a bit more. Yeah. It is a business model from some companies, right? If you look at a company, for example, like Lidl, it is a business model. The business model is 100% cross training. The individual that you see at the cash register is the one who, you know, will be staffing the shelf. Is the one who will be moving things in the supermarket. So they cross train everybody to do exactly everything in that. So the salaries are higher in that company, and the retention is much higher. It's simply because we have trained everybody. You don't come to be just a cash register. They don't have that, right? So there are business models around it just to show that it will work. The retention is much higher than Walmart's retention. Why? Because the salaries are higher and they cross-train everybody. So again, it is to tell you that, you know, there is strategies about retention. There are many companies that use that as a way to retain their employees, because they have more skills. You know, when you have 2 or 3 who are missing, almost everybody can do the job. And it creates more customer satisfaction. I'm not going to get into that aspect. Just to wrap up,
Dr. Siby, I do just want to speak to that point, and I also have a question that came into me directly. It's interesting because I think for those that have been in the nonprofit sector for a very long time, it's almost like you are required very often to have multi-talents. And to not cross-train your staff would be, you know, it's not very motivating. It's not, it could be potentially detrimental depending on funding. So it's interesting to hear that there are sometimes, there's some pushback on that from time to time. I know it depends on the culture. I know it depends on the environment, but in my personal, very long experience in this world, it seems like everybody in nonprofit is multi-talented, multi-skilled. Really, it's unbelievable. But I do want to push out a question that I received directly to you. Because I did offer the group to just send me direct messages if they wanted to, and I will ask on their behalf. So this question is, how can HR and executive leadership collaborate more effectively to move from reactive to preventative culture management?
The number one, I would to answer the recommendation that I have, and let me pull back a little bit. In a nonprofit organization, 10 million and up, HR director is part of the top leadership to make decisions. Right? In many of the nonprofits below $10 million, the HR director is generally at the second layer, right? So they may develop a strategy that require competencies level, but the HR director is not even part of that critical decision meetings. So the first thing for me is you have to make sure that the top 3 individuals in the organization who are making most important decisions, the HR is a part of it. That facilitates implementation. When you have an executive director or a CEO, several vice presidents, and the HR director is under the leadership of those individuals, it becomes very difficult because of the positioning in the hierarchy of the organization for the HR director's decision to have weight. Right. So structurally, that's what the challenge that many organizations have. So my advice is to have senior leadership critical meeting with the views of HR. If HR is not part of those meetings, it becomes very difficult. So I would like to know if HR is a part of those meetings first to see what solution I can propose.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Motivation for the innovation and creativity, there are 2 things that I will add. Is generally, when you want to take a big project, let's say I took a big culture shift project, or I took a new strategic plan, you have to test drive it. Right? You have to test drive it. There are big issues that you want to take and start with a program. Right? You can innovate at a smaller scale. Or you decided you're going to use a new tool, you want to innovate, I would say develop a proof of concept first before you can move the organization. So you have to test drive it with a smaller project, smaller program, and you develop it, you have to learn from it, how the implementation works before moving it to the entire organization. All right. So in terms of innovation and creativity, organizations need to allow that to happen. Sometimes some people have a project. It is like, okay, it may not work in the entire organization, but why don't you try it here, right? What is the program that's ready to implement this kind of project? And if it is implemented, what is the proof of concept? What did you learn? How easy was it, right? What is the process that we need to use now that's internal to us that you can use to implement in the entire organization? And that will be important. Client member focus, I will not delve too much into it. It's simply because we are a nonprofit organization, a lot of people who join our organizations are mission driven. They care about the mission. So every time when they feel like you are the mission drift and they don't feel like the organization is serving their constituent, the first people to leave the organization are those people who have this intrinsic motivation, who really care about the organization. They tend to leave. They see, for example, that the members are getting reactive service delivery. There is a limited feedback mechanism because we're just chasing money and we really don't care about the membership. All right. And the missing a mission alignment, we see a big funding there, and there is a mission drift to get that money, and now we're not serving our constituents. So a lot of times you have to be very careful in not doing those kind of things because your members focus. You're losing member focus. You will lose the people who care deeply, who join this organization because of what impact it will bring to those members. Adaptability and change management. And this ties to, again, the strategic plan. You may have 2, 3, 4 strategic plan. It needs to be adapted to the organization. And I will use a word, if you just ask me if you don't understand what it is. A cross-functional management is critical in any form of implementation. When I say cross-functional, it means program development, operation, and finance need to work together to implement any organizational-wide strategy. So if you don't have a good cross-functional expertise or cross-functional communication internally, it becomes very difficult to implement any organization-wide strategy. Because the way it will work with the finance team, let's say you have a campaign now, you need to pay people faster, and finance didn't know. And, invoices pile up. They didn't know, so it's become a problem, right? So if it is the same thing, development with a program take a bigger project, and the rest of the organization needed to move the systems and processes closer to the delivery of this project. And if that didn't happen, there is a problem. You will not be able to implement those longer strategies or these big new culture issues that you bring. This is why adaptability and change management, there are processes to change management. You're going to bring something big, you need to assess your organization. Is this organization change ready? And there are dimensions to change ready and address those issues. When you have a lot of conflict in the organization, this is not the time to develop a new strategy, because it's not going to work until and unless you deal with that conflict, or until or unless you deal with the shortcoming that you see in your management to do the implementation, until and unless you deal with the lack of accountability you have in your organization. If you can't deal with that, you bring a new project and you don't have accountability, and you don't have accountability in the organization, that becomes problematic. Right? This is why adaptability and change management are critical things. Never make a big change without providing the training, close the knowledge gap, then the skill gap, then move to implementation. If you try to implement that new strategy without ensuring that people have a good understanding of it, and they have a skill to implement it, your implementation will be a non-starter. Question before we move to next.
I do have a question that was sent to me. Hold on one second, and I will let you know what it says. So it says here, in terms of what you're just talking about. So once that root cause is identified, how do you prioritize which cultural issue to tackle first? And what are the realistic timelines for seeing measurable improvements?
The realistic time will, again, I don't have the data on a specific organization, but I would say my advice will be to conduct a culture diagnostic the organization based on some of these elements, to identify where you have the issues and prioritize those issues. The priority cannot be like in a vacuum, right? You have to look at the data. Is it the management level that you have issues that you need to prioritize? Or is it the integrity of ethics that your organization have that you need to solve in order to solve so it depends on where your organization feels like the problem that they're having the largest impact on the workers. So a survey, right? A survey of the organization will identify and pinpoint it. All the decisions needed to be data-driven decisions. I will stress on that. Right, all the decisions need to be data-driven decision when it comes to something that's critical. It needs to be a data-driven solution. Then you look at the data. Okay, which one is having a more impact on which one? Than which one? Then you make a decision about it. But it cannot be made in a vacuum, because organizations are different. Some have solid management who are trained on their skill, and it is employee engagement that's really lagging, and they are not engaged, and you're asking them to implement, it's not going to work. Right.
So Dr. Siby, to that point, I actually have a question myself. It's interesting because it's like when we're all trying to bring in new ideas, fresh ideas, maybe something that's going to help the culture of the organization, and everybody's on board, it's exciting, it's shiny, it's new, and then we all hit that kind of that roadblock where it starts to peter out a little bit. How can somebody in a leadership position continue, to build on that momentum as opposed to hit those roadblocks?
I will go back to what I said earlier. Test drive. Build a proof of concept, right? Instead of him trying to implement something that is new, everybody's excited about it. But don't go necessarily to try to implement it in the entire organization. The reason why proof of concept is important, in change management, there is something that we call the change leaders, right? When you have a proof of concept, it means, let's say, we have folks who are excited in the program department or in the HR department, we're excited to implement this new strategy or this new concept of culture. You try there and you see how it works, right? What have been the challenges? And who among this team will have buy-in? Because for you to implement, it is bad if it's like top-down approach to implement and force a new resolution on people. So it will be best when you have a proof of concept, you have people who really believe, who volunteer to say, we want to do that in our department, right? These are the people who will be your change leaders. And the other one who will be part of a training of the entire staff to kind of implement. This is how you know, don't be afraid. Coming from you is totally different than coming from the peers who have already implemented that and have seen the challenges. And you too want to know, before you hit the roadblock, if there will be challenge. This is why I talk about the proof of concept. You have to test drive it at a smaller scale. It is simply like you want to implement a strategy. You have to do a stage by stage, and just consider that as your first stage is this department, right? You don't have time to do everything in this department, and learn from it. Those lessons will teach you what is the resistance to change in this specific activity. Why are people resisting? Once you understand that, use your new, it is like in organizing. You just go to a campaign, a leadership campaign. You need to have this leader in your campaign who is convincing other people to join your campaign. It doesn't have to rely on you alone. You have to develop leaders who will lead it. So these are change leaders are the best approach to help you implement, organizational wide.
Thank you very much. And just to let you know, we're at 12:53 p.m. So
Okay. Yeah, so I'll go faster on those three: integrity and ethics. No one will tell you how important. Can tell you how important integrity and ethics. So management is saying something and doing something different. 50% of people leaving the organization, it is management. It's due to management. They don't trust the managers. So you want to make sure that HR is really clear on what's accepted and what is not accepted in the organization, and the enforcement is in place. If there is no accountability, integrity and ethics will be problematic. But it can still be problematic, right? I can't tell you that integrity and ethics are easy. They are not, right? One example is you have this long-term volunteer who have been in the organization for the past 3 years volunteering, and there is a position that open. Management wants to hire this person. The program manager wants to hire this person because he has volunteered for 2 years. And the HR director is saying, no, we have a process for hiring. You need to announce it, and you need to, to conduct job interviews, right? There's two ways of looking at it. There is a conflict. And management can get inside and say, you know what, this person has volunteered for 2 years, we're not opening. We need to hire that person. So sometimes this is what happened. You look at it on one side, you kind of understand why. And on the other side, it is like there are rules and principles of this organization. Our way of doing things is to announce and job interview and etc. But you feel like this is already part of family and we're going to hire. So this is why integrity and ethics, there's a lot of gray areas, right? And organizations need to be able to be transparent and have a conversation. If they know they made a mistake, to own that mistake and be able to say, this is where we came out short. And next time, this is what we're going to do, and these are the principles we should follow. Always the principles of the values of the organization should guide the decisions, whether it has a negative impact on the organization. That is something like you need to have a conversation about and justify your decision. Because when you lose trust with your staff, there is a lot that you lose that more than trust. Teamwork and collaboration, again, in a lot of organizations, people leave because they can't work with the team members. They just can't. Because team has been built around type A personality, and a lot of people can't, they just don't. So my advice is also check the personalities of your teams. Myers-Briggs can do that. I would not say type A, but type 1, but type 2 can help you do that, right? Identify what are the personalities in because communication style are different. Learning style are different. Taking somebody who's an introvert, they don't talk a lot, they think a lot, they're slower. An extrovert think aloud, right? It's talking while it's thinking. So the way it's perceived by the introvert is, if you don't flex, the introvert doesn't flex his way of looking at things, and the extrovert doesn't flex his way of looking at things, it may bring issue within the team. So you have to understand that there are different styles, and everybody needs to flex their style to be open to the other ways of doing things and to be accepting. So team building is an important element in preventing turnover. Performance orientation, what I can say is a lot of performance that's being done. It is more punishing than developmental performance. Your performance should always lead to identifying the gap in skills and knowledge and developing that person instead of seeing, if you don't do this, this is what is going to happen to you. And that's really more of a threat. And it doesn't grow and stuff. So you want to be very careful about, look at your performance orientation. What do you call performance management? Are you grooming people, or are you punishing them? Or are they perceiving the situation as punishing them than grooming them? And diversity and inclusion, studies have shown that organizations that are more diverse, their performance is better. And diversity includes everything. It is simply not a race and gender. It has all the leadership style and everything in it. So if you have everybody looking at things from one perspective, it is problematic. So you need to have diverse perspectives so you can see all the issues before you make a decision. I have only 2 minutes, so what I can say in all of this is culture is critical for employee retention strategy. What I do is assess organizational culture from different dimensions. My test has over 150 questions, 153 questions to test it, to diagnose organizational culture. I have another one, about 200 and more questions for change readiness assessment, to understand if your organization is ready and what are the challenges that you need to look at and have a conversation about them. I do have a mini of those tests. You can have access on my website. So again, I really appreciate you joining us today. I am certified to conduct the MBTI test, the CPI, which is a leadership development test for leaders to identify the shortcoming, not against the best in the field. It's the same thing as emotional intelligence. When you see a lot of challenge or conflict, maybe managers need to be tested. Not a 360 where other people have opinion, but they are tested against the best in the field. So again, I thank you a lot for joining me today. You can follow up with me. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siby. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get through all of your slides. I know that this is a much more in-depth topic. So if anybody does want to connect directly with Dr. Siby, he left his contact information on the last slide. We can also certainly make that introduction for you as well. For those of you that are first timers with us, please be sure to be in touch with us, enroll as a nonprofit partner. And this way we can send you updates on more webinars like this. Perhaps Dr. Siby will do a follow-up webinar and we'll kind of drill down into some of the details of what we were talking about. Like he said, he does have several assessments available if you want to connect with him about that for your organization. Other than that, I would like to thank Dr. Siby again for your time, your wisdom, your knowledge, and everybody for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great
You're
day.
welcome. Thanks.
Bye now.